Hello, I'm Matt Finch, and this is just a quick little activity called Yoga for Futurists. The aim in the next few minutes is just to help you build some strength, flexibility, and even well-being when it comes to the way that you look at the future and make choices about where you or your organization are going in the world to come. It's really just an activity you can do over your coffee break. And if you like anything that you hear in the next few minutes, do feel free to come and say hello to me online, Dr. Matt Finch on Twitter, or visit my site, mechanicaldolphin.com. Now, as I say, we're thinking about the way we look at the future, which can sound like quite an abstract thing. So wonderfully, I have a little toy to illustrate what I want to say. If you imagine that this piece of plastic is the viewfinder through which you're looking at the future, it represents your capacity for foresight, the energy, the time, the budget, the resources, the appetite your organization has for looking at and thinking about the world to come. So all the bits of the future that you can consider occupy this space here. Now, what happens, of course, is that when we start to think about the future, sometimes we stretch or change the frame that we're using to look at the world. So we suddenly think, oh, actually, we need to consider these technological changes that might come in our sector. Actually, there are some demographic changes coming for our users or even our staff. And actually, there are some trends in our sector that we need to think about as well. And what happens is we still occupy some of the same territory we were looking at before. We get to look at some other bits of the potential future as well, but we also lose territory and gain a few different blind spots along the way. And one of the challenges when we look at the future is that whatever we do, however much we stretch and try to incorporate the things that we think we need to know about in order to make decisions about what's coming, there are always going to be some blind spots. And what makes it extra difficult is that often in organizations, actually the way we look at the future is a little bit irregular. So it's shaped by, for example, what the executive team think and the way they like to receive information, the kinds of training our staff have and the educational backgrounds they come from, maybe the budget and planning cycles, maybe the assumptions that our sector already has, maybe there are a few sacred cows, things that we actually can't think about or don't let ourselves think about when it comes to the future. And what happens is that viewfinder we use to look at the world to come tends to be a little bit irregular around the edges and maybe a little bit stiff. So what we're trying to do in this Yoga for Futurists is maybe get used to stretching that frame and adapting it and realizing that however much we stretch it, wherever we twist it, there are always going to be some blind spots which we have to be aware of. And the one thing we do know is that if you always use the same format for looking at the future and always stay in that square box, then you're always going to be hit by the same blind spots. So here's a quick activity that you can carry out just in a few minutes over a coffee break with a colleague or by yourself, or something you can do in greater depth if it helps, but it's really just that initial warm-up when it comes to stretching the frame through which we're looking at the future. This activity is called Arrows of Time, and it's adapted from an activity in strategic reframing, which is the manual of the Oxford scenario planning approach used at the Said Business School at Oxford University. And this book, written by Rafael Ramirez and Angela Wilkinson, is really worth reading. What I've done is taken one of the activities from the book and slightly adapted it for our purposes. You're just going to need a piece of paper and something to write with. And what you're going to do in the bottom left-hand corner of your piece of paper is you're going to draw an arrow here, and you're going to label this one the past. And all around that arrow in the bottom left-hand corner, you're going to jot down your responses to the following questions. As we move into the future, what will we still be dealing with? What can't we get away from? What isn't finished yet? What will we still be dealing with? What can't we get away from? What isn't finished yet? Which aspects of the past are still going to be relevant when it comes to us making decisions about our future? So what I want you to do is simply to jot down your responses to those questions all around this arrow in the bottom left-hand corner of the piece of paper. Then in the top right-hand corner, surprise, surprise, you're going to draw another arrow, and this one you are going to label future. And around that arrow on the top right-hand side, you're going to jot down your responses to these questions. What do we know is coming? What do we fear? What do we hope? What haven't we prepared for? And what can't we avoid? What do we know is coming? What do we fear? What do we hope? What haven't we prepared for? What can't we avoid? And the aim here is to capture some of our expectations, but also the way that the futures that we want and don't want are shaping the way that we're looking at the world to come. And it's also about explicitly starting to think about our blind spots, the areas that we're not looking at, the areas that we haven't prepared for. And once you've got your responses to those questions all jotted down around that arrow on the top right hand side, then right here in the middle, this space is where you have your answers to the question, what are we going to do? Now, in future videos and on my site, I'll be showing you some activities that offer you creative and meaningful and structured ways to fill in this box in the middle and to think about the best choices to make going into the future. But for now, I want you to think about the arrow from the top right from the future, the arrow from the bottom left in the past, and use those to start to stretch and change the way you look at the world to come and the situations you or your organization might be facing. And just considering what you're going to do in terms of those two arrows, the ongoing legacy of the past and the things that might be coming at us from the future, will start the business of stretching and getting you to limber up the frame through which you look at the world to come. So that's it, Yoga for Futurists in under 7 minutes. If you found this useful or you want to know more or you want to get in touch and talk further, what you should do is come and find me online. Dr. Matt Finch on Twitter or mechanicaldolphin.com is my website. I'd love to talk more, and I'll be back soon with more thinking about how we can prepare for the world to come and make good choices. Thanks for your time. Have a good day.